Welcome to a special episode 23 of the Hodgepodge podcast. I'm your host, Doug.
And I'm Dirty A. As the name suggests, we're going to talk about a hodgepodge of topics from movies, music, TV, and other pop culture events.
And this episode is a career retrospective for Philip Seymour Hoffman. You can reach us at the Hodgepodge Podcast at gmail.com or over on our website, thehodgepodgepodcast.com, or over on my review blog, dougreviews.blogspot.com. And unless you've been living under a rock the last week and a half or so, you know that Philip Seymour Hoffman passed away of a drug overdose just last week. As we're recording this, a big loss. It's a huge loss. He was the kind of guy that you'd look at, and then when you hear the way he died, you automatically go, "Him? Really?"
Yeah.
And he had talked about recently how he struggled with addiction in the past and stuff. And as I read all the reports and stuff like that, it looks like he was going through a tough time recently. He fell off the wagon, but also it looks like he had split up with his partner / wife. And
he'd been in and out of rehab for probably a decade.
Yeah,
and he
was clean for a long time.
Yeah, and then he got clean, and he had that what will now be looked at as a very telling interview where he said, if I ever go back on this, it's going to kill me.
Yeah, it's sad. Some people would disagree. Some people would say, oh, well, he was an addict and blah, blah, blah. But, that's the old way, I think, of looking at drugs. It's clear, not to get real political about it, but it's clear that the drug war has failed.
It was never, it was
right.
all,
right.
A faux war anyway.
Yeah, Chris Rock said it right in '96. People want to get high, and people are going to get high. You might as well, just decriminalize it and control it so people can,
Yeah. And, I'm not, no one's going to sit here and say he was right or wrong, but it doesn't make it any less tragic.
Yeah.
With his passing, or anyone who has to pass or deal with a friend or family member's passing like that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like most people who will say stuff like that, I would think that have never had to deal with addiction or anything like that, or have anybody in their family deal with addiction. It's bad news, and especially this heroin is really bad news. I don't have a personal connection like familial connection to it, but we've talked on the past that I'm a big fan of Depeche Mode, and their lead singer was hooked on heroin for the better part of a decade. And I remember the minute I heard about Philip Seymour Hoffman, and then they said the needle was in his arm, I automatically thought of Dave Gahan when he OD'd, and then when he came to, they arrested him immediately. And he was coming out of the prison or the jail, and with his manager, and they had all the reporters there. And he literally said, he goes, "I'm a heroin addict, and it's taken everything I love away from me." It was just sad. It was really, really sad. And he, fortunately, turned his life around, and he's clean now.
Yeah, there's such a stigma on drugs.
Yeah.
But, addiction comes in many forms.
Oh, yeah.
And some people, like, sadly, Philip Seymour Hoffman, their addiction came with something that, had the ability to kill them.
Yeah.
It's a terrible day. Hearing that news on the 2nd, February 2nd.
Yeah.
Most people were doing their Super Bowl stuff.
Yeah.
I don't really partake in those sporting events, so I was just sitting on my couch and came through the wire there that he had passed, and I immediately wanted to hope that it was one of those hoaxes.
Yeah, like when they're always like, Morgan Freeman's dead.
But within 2 minutes, I saw that it was reported by the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah,
was the one who broke it, and they're not gonna
they're
not the organization that's going to go put that without some
TMZ.
kind of confirmation. It's just a truly sad day. We've lost a mediocre actor of stage and screen.
Sure. Tom Hanks said it best. He said he was a giant. He was a giant talent, and he was a guy that a lot of, I would say, mainstream audiences probably didn't know. They probably had to look at him and then say, "Oh, that guy. I know that guy." But he was an amazing actor. I look forward to everything that he did. He just showed up recently in the Hunger Games, the new Hunger Games movie. And he was honestly like probably the best part.
He was the only. I mean, for me, the only redeeming part about the movie. Obviously, I was kidding. Being sarcastic earlier, but no, I mean, he for me personally, everything he touched was magic.
Yeah,
I mean, he turned any role he was in, he embodied that role.
Yeah,
and was just it was just amazing. And I am very sad that I'm never going to see. Well, I guess. We'll get one more. We'll get two more, I guess.
He filmed.
Shots at him, right?
He had a few. He did A Most Wanted Man. He just finished that with Anton Corbijn.
They're gonna edit up his footage for Mockingjay too.
He's gonna be in both of those because he had like one more scene to film. I think they said
it was like he had. I think it was somewhere like 7 days left of shooting, so they were just gonna CGI him in. I think. Yeah,
and then he was also in John Slattery from Mad Men, his featured directorial debut called God's Pocket.
Oh, okay.
From what I've heard, that one is just okay. That movie.
All right.
But I'm really looking forward to A Most Wanted Man because that's based on a John I can never pronounce his name right, but it's like John le Carre, who also wrote Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's a very great movie.
And Anton Corbijn is the famed photographer and director is doing it.
See, the original writer was Tinker Tailor was a remake, right?
They had done done. It originated with the novel. It was a novel. First.
Oh, okay. So this was the actual author of.
He wrote the novel for A Most Wanted Man and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. That's John le Carre, and then Anton Corbijn is doing A Most Wanted Man, and it'll be interesting. I don't know how big of a hit it'll be around here in America because Anton Corbijn is very much a European filmmaker. Yeah. He proved that with George Clooney in The American, a film that I love.
It's a great movie,
but
it didn't take off.
But it's not an action movie.
Well, that's the problem. Is that
it's very
people wanted to see
an
action movie, right? And as much as Hollywood does these days, they even almost tried to bill it as an action movie,
right?
And it wasn't. But that did not
Out of the Furnace.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, yeah, but
different movie, but it's same.
Yeah, Out of the Furnace though
was not European, but it's the same. They tried to sell it.
They tried to sell it that way. But The American, nothing got detracted from me from that.
I loved it. I thought it was great. But we're getting off.
Anyway, we're talking about Mr. Philip Seymour Hoffman, and we wanted to take this podcast and just kind of reminisce a little bit about maybe some of our favorite roles of his, and some of his groundbreaking roles that were noticed, and some that went maybe a little under the radar.
Yeah, I first saw him in Twister. Yeah. He played a small part in Twister. He was part of Helen Hunt's team.
Helen Hunt, yeah.
And anytime there's ever a thunderstorm in the summer, I always quote his character and I go, "Greenwich, man, Greenwich," because that's what happened when the clouds turned green, and that meant the tornado was coming. Yeah, he was good. He was like the comic relief in that movie. But I really didn't notice him until... I mean, I love that line, but I didn't really notice how good he was until, like most people, until Boogie Nights.
Scotty.
And Scotty. And he was the closeted best boy or grip, or whatever you want to call him. He was the sound man.
Honestly, he was a lot of the comedy relief in that too. It's kind of hard to say that maybe that's comedy relief because it's just chock full of it. But he was a large piece of that. And very memorable performance.
Oh yeah.
That was the first movie I noticed him in.
Mm-hmm.
When I went back later, I saw movies like Twister and Sin of a Woman and realized, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and he was very good in those roles. But for me, like you said, with most people, I didn't notice him until Boogie Nights, and that role was just so genius in the way it was underplayed. Given that the rest of the cast was really the stars of the movie,
right?
He had a very, very bit supporting role there.
Right.
It was just perfect though, going out and showing him his new Corvette. Showing Dirk his new Corvette, and it's stupid.
Yeah, and that's a scene that plays for laughs. But it's also a heartbreaking scene because it's anybody can relate to that. Not having to take Dirk Diggler out to check your car, but if you try to make a pass at a girl and she said "ooh" and put her hand in your face, I mean anybody can relate to that and the embarrassment of that. I think my favorite scene was when they all go clothes shopping and then John C. Reilly and Mark Wahlberg buy the same suit and then he wears it and it's like he's got his pot belly and it's like
every fold is just falling out of the shirt. Yeah,
and then he was in also. He had another small but pivotal role. He was in Big Lebowski.
Yep.
And Big Lebowski, I didn't watch. I didn't see that until like later.
Oh,
so I was well aware of him at the time.
Well, it was more. You're saying it was more already the cult standing.
Right. Yeah. After I'd finally sat down and watched it.
Was that after? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that was after Boogie Nights.
Yeah. But he worked with P.T. Anderson a lot. He was in Paul Thomas Anderson's first movie, Hard Eight.
Yeah.
Magnolia. In Magnolia, which he was great in. Magnolia, and that also. I mean, I remembered him from Boogie Nights, but Magnolia, because Boogie Nights I'd seen on cable, I think, and Magnolia, we actually went to the theater to go see Magnolia, and he was just fantastic in that movie.
There were so many good,
great performances.
In that movie. I remember the first time I saw that movie, I liked the performances. The movie was just kind of and then when I rewatched it later, I fully appreciated everything about that movie. But he, like I said, everything he does, he seems to put everything he has into every role.
Right.
He takes on.
Yeah.
And I wish, and you're never going to hear me say this much, but I wish I could have seen him on stage.
Yeah.
Doing Death of a Salesman or something like that.
Right.
He's so known for.
Yeah.
Never have the chance to see that. And, it's sad.
Yeah. Magnolia, in that movie, he played a hospice worker. Who was the father? It was Jason Robards.
Yeah.
Jason Robards.
Earl.
Jason Robards was the father, and he was dying of cancer. And Philip Seymour Hoffman played the hospice worker, and his work in that movie really touched me because the same year my father passed away of cancer, and I had to deal with hospice work and stuff like that, and just to see how it really hit home for me, his part there. So he really left a mark on me. He was just great work, and then
followed that one up with another great movie, The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Right.
Which I recently rewatched after hearing about his death, and that movie holds up today. Again, not a starring role, a very a very
important
small
role,
part, but very important and telling role that he offers up in that movie. And I couldn't see it done by anyone else. Certainly, not to the standards that he offered up in that role. And again, he played as much as Jude Law's character was going to have a best friend character for Thomas Ripley. He eventually, spoiler alert, gets killed by Matt Damon after he
figures out who he is and
what his scam is.
Yeah.
But it was so brilliant, and the scenes he had where he was playing just a whimsical kind of rich playboy to when he's kind of figuring things out, and he's still got that playboy nature to him, but he's being a little more serious. It's just brilliant work.
Yeah. That was directed by Anthony Minghella, who is also passed. He passed away in 2008. It brings, it draws your attention to things that happen, and people who have left. And as I'm going through his filmography, there's a lot of movies I've always intended to watch. I just never have gotten around to watch them. And now it's like, now I feel a need that I have to watch them.
You see Almost Famous?
I've never seen Almost Famous.
Watch that one.
And I heard he was great in that.
You'll fall in love with him again in that movie. It's so good. 25th Hour, did you see that?
I can't remember if I saw that or not.
It's with Ed Norton, who's about to go to jail for dealing drugs, and it's his last day out out as a free man before he goes to jail.
I may have seen that. I can't remember if I saw it or not.
Hoffman nailed that role. He played one of Edward's high school friends. Kind of a reconnecting of friends. He and Barry Pepper.
Okay.
And they kind of have a night out,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just really good. Hoffman is a high school teacher who has a little thing for one of his students, played by Anna Paquin.
Oh, okay.
And they meet her at a club, and Hoffman just turns on the awkward, awkward, stupid. kind of that same deal, and it's brilliant. And some of the conversations he has actually with Barry Pepper in that movie, great dialogue.
Yeah. I'll have to check it out. I don't think I have seen it now that I'm hearing all this. I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah.
And then he did. He's been in a ton of stuff. But he did Along Came Polly. That's. I think, did you post that or somebody posted that online?
I didn't post that, but this is great.
But he
make it rain. The rain dance.
But he had the line that sharded in that, which was,
dude, we got to get out of here. I think I sharded.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
I think that might have been the first time I'd heard that term.
Oh, really?
Myself, yeah.
Really? Yeah. And then that same year that movie came out, he did Capote, where he played Truman Capote, and he eventually won the Oscar for that.
Deservedly so.
Yeah, the best actor Oscar. And to be honest, that year that movie came out, the next year in 2006 was the Academy Awards, and that's the year that Crash won. And to be honest, when I was looking at the movies at the time, I was like, you know what? I wouldn't be sad if Capote won the Oscar for Best Picture.
There were 2 or 3 movies that probably deserved it better than Crash. That was again one of those upsets that most people. That was one of those Oscar stunners that no one saw coming.
Well, they didn't want to vote for Brokeback Mountain, the game movie.
Basically, so which to me, I didn't see Brokeback Mountain until years later, and I guess the subject matter was a little less taboo.
Yeah.
I thought the movie was okay, but it's like if you transplant anything else into there other than they're gay, there's nothing special about that movie.
Yeah.
But again, I guess at the time it was a little more edgier.
Yeah. But yeah, he won the Oscar for Best Actor.
He was so good at his voice just.
Yeah, I don't understand
That's the
why
one.
it's going
So
to
good.
be like that, because
So good.
why would they talk like that about us? That's not right.
Yeah, he was great in that movie. Bless you.
Thank you. And if you're not aware, Capote is it's a biographical story of Truman Capote and the time in his life when he was writing his famous novel In Cold Blood.
Right.
About a serial.
It's true. His true crime story.
Correct. True crime story. That's right.
Right.
About a real life serial killer who he, I guess you could say, befriended. I mean.
Oh yeah. I mean the implications that he fell in love with the guy.
Right.
And they did make 2 movies basically.
Right. The other actor was who?
Toby Jones.
Toby Jones.
And he did a great job too.
Yeah.
And to be honest, some people might say that Toby Jones looked more like him because he's much shorter and stuff like that. So and he did a great job too.
He had more of the call it the demeanor, the stature of maybe Capote did. And yeah, I would not take anything away from Jones's role there.
Right.
He did phenomenal. But Hoffman, I'll always remember him in that role.
Yeah, the Capote, the one that Philip Seymour Hoffman was in, that focused more, I think, on the actual writing of it, whereas the other one that Toby Jones was in was more about it was about that period of time, but it was more, I think, about his life.
I agree.
And it went more into like his circle of friends and stuff like that. Harper Lee, who wrote To Kill a Mockingbird, shows up in both movies.
His noted best friend.
Right, and she was played by Catherine Keener in Capote, and then in the other one's played by Sandra Bullock. And she did a great job in that movie, too. The year after that was 2006. He did one of my favorite roles that he ever did. And a lot of people might not say this, but he played Owen Davian in Mission Impossible 3, and he was the best part of that movie.
Look, I would have never in a million years cast Hoffman as like a super villain.
Yeah, he was great,
phenomenal. I mean, I would have done that. As it would be as unlikely as me to cast, like someone like Tom Hanks as a arch villain type. But Hoffman nailed it.
Yeah, he was great
with that. Oh,
do you have a wife? You have a girlfriend.
I mean,
I'm gonna find her.
I'm
gonna hurt her.
He was scary, man.
He was great.
It was just deadpan scary.
And I think his role in that led to a lot of talk after Nolan got Batman up and running again. That a lot of people were hoping that he was going to get cast as the Penguin someday in the Nolan movies.
He could have done that like with his hands tied behind.
But Nolan just didn't go that way.
Yeah.
He did a few movies in 2007. He did The Savages. I haven't never seen The Savages. I do want to watch it though.
It's from what I remember of that movie, it's not bad. Just for me, it wasn't one of those noteworthy movies that it's going to hang around in my memory.
He was nominated for a Best Supporting Actor Oscar, and he was nominated 4 times, I think, for the Oscars. He only won once for Capote, but he was nominated for Charlie Wilson's War.
Gus
as Gus
Avocados.
Yeah, he was a CIA guy.
Do you mind if I call you Gus? Well, it's Gus with the T, but go on. He was so good. He was so good in that role.
I liked that. I liked Charlie Wilson's War a lot, but he was fantastic.
He was. I really enjoyed the movie.
Right.
But he was by far the best part about the movie, and I think any other year he would have easily won Best Supporting Actor for that. But he was up against Javier Bardem for No Country for Old Men, and that was kind of just a gimme.
Yeah.
Bardem way deserved it.
It happened to him again the next year.
Yeah,
but we'll get to that in a minute.
But I mean, if you haven't watched Charlie Wilson's War, I say go see it because it's a great movie.
It's funny. It's really funny.
But watch his performance in that movie because it is great.
Hell yeah.
Were you spying on me? Did you have your ear up against the door? No, don't be silly. I'll bug the champagne.
He was fantastic in that movie. But actually, probably the better movie that came out that year that he was in was Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, where he plays, and it's sadly, it was like foreshadowing a little because his character in that movie is a heroin addict.
Yep.
And but he plays a guy who's in financial trouble. He's married to Marissa Tomei. His brother is Ethan Hawke, who is having an affair with Marissa Tomei.
As one would.
Right. He plays Andy, and he concocts this plan to rob their parents.
Get kind of a heist for robbery of their
jewelry store.
Yeah.
So they can, and then they're like, the insurance will cover it. Blah 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 blah. And of course, things go horribly wrong. And
great movie that most people probably didn't see. It was not a widely released movie. I had to check that one out at the local indie theater here when it did come out.
I saw it on DVD. I think I got it on Netflix or something like that.
I think I might own that one too. But
great,
really good movie.
Great movie.
That's one of those movies that honestly I thought would have gotten more buzz at the time. After seeing it, I mean, before again, I didn't know all that much about it, but after I saw it, I thought surely this will get more recognition. It didn't.
Well, it was directed by Sidney Lumet, if I'm saying that right, or Lumet, or is it Lumet?
What else did he?
Oh, he did Dog Day Afternoon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 12 Angry Men. Network.
Oh, so all those old
Network. Yeah, so he
great.
was. Yeah,
okay.
he was a Titan director.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And that was actually before.
That makes a lot of sense then, because I mean that movie was very. You could tell it was seasoned work.
Yeah.
Being done there.
That was his last movie actually for him.
Sydney.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Great movie. If you can find Before Devil Knows You're Dead and Charlie Wilson's War for that matter, check both of those out.
It might be on Netflix. Check it out.
It probably is. I think
it's a really good movie. You can't sell that one enough. Yeah.
2008, he did 2 movies as well. He did bizarre,
batshit crazy movie.
Yeah, bizarre Charlie Kaufman movie.
That's kind of a.
It's kind of that's redundancy. That's redundancy. But it was Schenectady, New York, where he plays a theater guy who builds
a scale. His idea is to build a scale replica of the city inside a warehouse
of New York, in a warehouse, and it's like and he has someone playing him, and then someone's playing him again. It's such a mind.
And again, you got to understand when I say scale replica, I mean like life size. That was the idea. It's a life size city. New York City inside a warehouse that's in New York City. So, it kind of blows the mind just thinking about it. But when you actually watch the movie...
Yeah.
Woo!
It's a mindfuck.
But he's great.
Oh, yeah, he's great in the movie. I mean, he's really great. I mean, he actually ages throughout the movie because it takes decades.
It's the movie that just doesn't... It can't be finished because it's...
Right.
There's always something to add.
Right. Yeah. So he conceived it as like a theater piece or something like that. It's it's so bizarre, but it's really, really good. But he was also in a movie that he also got nominated for Best Supporting Actor, and he was up against Heath Ledger for The Dark Knight. Yeah. So he was destined to lose, basically. But he was in Doubt, where he plays a priest who comes to a Catholic school, and basically the Catholic school is run by the head nun, which is
Phony Baloney,
Meryl Streep, and Amy Adams plays a younger. She's a history teacher,
more progressive
nun, yes. And Meryl Streep's character is all about having control of everything, and basically what happens is that a rumor starts that Philip Seymour Hoffman's character molested a child there, and it grows out of proportion. And you never know for sure.
It's a mystery.
Right, you never know for sure if it happened or not. It was based on a play.
Well, I see you're saying that there's
doubt. Yes. It was based on a play,
which goes back to his roots in theater.
Right. Yeah, and it was the guy John Patrick Shanley wrote the play, and he wrote the screenplay, and he directed the movie. Okay. So I think it was it Ian McKellen, or it might have been an article I read about him. They said if you never saw him on stage, this is probably the closest you could get to it in the movies, because it really is all about the performances. Because the story is like. I mean, I don't want to say it's throwaway, but it's not.
It's a pretty basic story.
Yeah.
But the story really is in the character.
Right.
I think is what you're getting at.
And Viola Davis was also in this, and she was in it really for like a scene, and she still got nominated.
Yeah, I was about to say actress. She was in like maybe a 3-minute scene. Yeah. But yeah, she was. She didn't win, right?
No, she didn't. No.
But yeah,
but that's when she popped on my radar.
She was basically nominated for a 3-minute scene in this movie.
Right.
And it's a very powerful scene. I'm not saying that to say she shouldn't have been nominated. She should have.
Right.
It was great. But it was pretty peculiar that it happened.
That was such a small scene. But they've done that before. Supporting
it wasn't the first time. It won't be the last.
But Doubt is a good movie. Check it out. But if you like your movies tied off and neatly done, you're not going to like it. You're not going to like it.
It doesn't put a bow around the story for you.
No, it doesn't.
He did another one shortly thereafter that I had never even heard of, and a friend of ours actually, told me I should watch. It was he voiced a character in an animated story, kind of a la Wallace and Gromit style animation, kind of claymation type, called Mary and Max. It was actually a real touching movie about pen pals.
Right.
A very young girl in Australia who randomly sends a letter from someone she picks out of a phone book to someone who lives in New York, who happens to be kind of a middle-aged man with Asperger's.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of a shut-in. And they actually, this is based on a true story, actually.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah. And so they actually, through the years, have correspondence with each other. They get mad at each other. They find happiness just in each other. They're like their only friends. They're each other's only friends, and they're continents away. And it's a real heartwarming story.
Yeah.
It's not the happiest of stories, but if you like animation and a good story, check it out.
I'll have to check that out.
Really good movie. Yeah.
Another movie that he did that I didn't get to see yet was Jack Goes Boating, and I think that was his directorial debut.
I didn't see that either. Yeah,
that was the first movie he directed, so I definitely want to see that. He also was in George Clooney's The Ides of March.
Yeah,
he was great.
It was a pretty good movie.
Great in that
He's
movie.
Excellent. He was in Pirate Radio.
Was
that before or after?
That was before.
Okay,
as the count.
Yeah, he did real good there. That movie was kind of a throwaway movie,
right?
But he did very good as the DJ, if you will, of the radio station.
Yeah. He played Oakland Athletics manager Art Howe in Moneyball.
Yep.
And it's funny, the real Art Howe, because obviously Moneyball was based on a true story, and that was the movie starring Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill. And the real Art Howe said that he did not like his portrayal in the movie, but he didn't blame Philip Seymour Hoffman. He thought Philip Seymour Hoffman did a good job. He was just like, that's the way they wrote it, but I don't like the way they wrote it because that's not the way it was. Sure. Which is fair enough. Yeah. So, but he was in that. The role he had wasn't a big role because it was more about Brad Pitt.
That one was kind of a throwaway. Just because the movie was so focused on Hill and Pitt there. Yeah. Not that he did anything wrong, not his finest work through no fault of his own.
Right.
So that was Moneyball. Next was
his
brilliant performance
in The Master.
The Master. The movie itself, I have my problems with. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It's just it's not very plot driven. So it's one of those movies that you have to be ready to sit through. Yeah. But he is so good in it. He's so powerful. Phoenix too.
Yeah. But Amy Adams is fantastic.
But my God, Hoffman in this movie, he's so captivating.
Yeah, he is. If you don't know, The Master was done by P.T. Anderson. It was their last collaboration together, and it's basically about L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology. Yeah. Hoffman plays the L. Ron Hubbard stand-in, but the movie's really about Joaquin Phoenix's character, who is a mess. I think when I did...
well, I would say that it's about the relationship.
No, it is
between Phoenix and how someone like Phoenix can be
sucked into
a world, a cult, yeah. And again, when you say it's basically Scientology, again they don't. It's not a quote unquote true story in that it's
right.
They don't say it's Scientology or that it's L. Ron Hubbard. Right. But it's obvious.
It's like wink. Yeah. It's definitely about that. But the other thing is that I think when I did my review for it, my first line was, Freddie Quell's got problems. And that's Joaquin Phoenix's character, and he sure does. His life is a fucking mess. But Philip Seymour Hoffman, what was great about his character is that as you watch the movie, you find out that he really is not the Master. The Master really is his wife, played by Amy Adams.
She's pulling the strings.
And she's chilling in that movie. She's great though. It's a great movie, but it is slow because it really, like Dirty A said, it really isn't that plot driven. It really just tells this guy's life from one point to another, and how this guy Lancaster Dodd figures into it, and it's just a really great movie.
Yeah, lots of telling imagery in this movie, symbolism. Rampant throughout this movie, which is one thing I love about it. Yeah. But yeah, gosh, Hoffman just blew me away as his role in this movie. This is a movie where if it had been anyone else in that role, I might have even turned it off at some point. But I couldn't turn away from Hoffman's character. Yeah. I mean, he was. It was almost like he was preaching to me and converting me as he's converting Phoenix.
It was very similar to Anderson's movie before that, There Will Be Blood, where it just tells his life as opposed to it being.
I like that as a movie. I like that one better.
Right.
A little more.
Well, it's also because Daniel Day-Lewis as Plainview is the main character.
Yeah, that's true.
And not saying that Joaquin Phoenix did a bad job. It's just that. His character, Freddie, is like a total misanthrope. I mean, you're just like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, he's off the rails.
Yeah,
you can't relate to him on any level.
Right, Daniel,
just like, what is he going through? I have no idea.
Daniel Plainview was more of like a supervillain. Yeah. Whereas Freddie Quell was more of like the henchman.
The Mad Hatter,
he's like the henchman. He's Beastman to Plainview Skeletor.
Right. He doesn't really, it's basically the thoughts, any thought in his head ends up being put there by
Lancaster Dodd.
Dodd.
By Hoffman's character. Yeah. He did another movie that I've yet to see is A Late Quartet, where he plays in a quartet of. They play. It's a quartet orchestra, and it's him. There was like two movies that were like this, and I just want to make sure I've got the cast right. It's him. It's Christopher Walken. Catherine Keener is in it, and then the other guy is Mark Evanier.
Okay, I
And
don't. For some reason, I don't recall this one.
it was like a limited release.
Okay.
Came out. I think it was last year, didn't it? Wasn't it last year?
It was 12, I think.
Oh, 12, yeah, 2012. So, it's one that I definitely want to see.
Okay.
Like 2 of them are married or something like that, and then, it's interesting. And then, of course, finally, he did Catching Fire last year, where he essentially played Philip Seymour Hoffman.
He plays the game master, if you will.
Plutarch Heavensby.
Yeah.
And he has a twist in his role. We won't spoil it for those for the 5 people who haven't seen it. But yeah, he was good in it. He was really good. He has a really good scene with Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah.
At the party.
At the party, yeah.
And
I mean, he's the reason to watch that movie. I know, most people really like The Hunger Games,
right? Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's a bad movie, by the way. It's not terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It's for me more of a remake of the first Hunger
one.
Games.
Right.
Catching Fire is what I'm referring to.
Right.
But once Hoffman steps on screen, he just elevates the movie to another level, even if it's just for that little bit while he's on screen.
Yeah, and he has great scenes with Donald Sutherland as well. As President Snow.
Another awesome actor.
And so now, that brings us to currently, and like we said earlier, he's got a few movies in the can, and one they're still finishing the second.
They will. They've already announced that they do have enough footage to finish off his role in the Hunger Games, and they will edit it down a little bit. I mean, they're going to have to do a little bit of rewriting.
Right,
but
they'll probably have to have a stand-in.
They'll have a stand-in. They're going to use some CGI. And they will finish off his role in both.
He was done with the first one. He was done with the first Mockingjay.
No, right. He only had 7 days left of filming in the second movie.
And they had to do the same thing with Gladiator.
They did it before with The Crow.
Yeah.
Brandon Lee. They had to do a rewrite at the end of that and do some different editing because he was killed on set during the last few days of filming there.
Yeah, I was looking it up when it was Oliver Reed.
Oh,
Oliver Reed and Gladiator. They do the same thing with him because he passed away in the middle of filming it. And then they also did it on Sopranos with his Tony's mother.
Yeah. I never watched that.
Your loss.
Yeah.
So, and he also had, and this is also what kills me too, because he also had a show that was going to come on Showtime. Philip Seymour Hoffman was going to be coming to your TV set every week in a show called Happy-ish. And they had the pilots done, and I don't know how much of the show they filmed. It'll be interesting to see what Showtime does with it, to see if they'll put it out.
I would have loved to have seen him every week in it.
And that happened. The same thing happened with James Gandolfini. Gandolfini was set to be in a new HBO show, but he died, I think, before they even started filming.
Right, they were just kind of. They were further along in talks, but yes, they hadn't started doing anything with it yet.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, again, it's a tragic loss to anyone who enjoys cinema.
Yeah.
For me, he was by far just in that top echelon of actors that just couldn't be touched, just could do no wrong.
Yeah.
Anything he did was amazing. And I challenge anyone to, comment on this and let me know a role that you didn't enjoy Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah, he was one of the best. And we're sure going to miss him. It's a shame.
Just comes to mind. I really article that I read that I really enjoyed that Aaron Sorkin wrote.
Right.
Everyone likes to chime in during these tragic deaths, and he wrote a very sweet, very short article about how he too was an addict.
Right. Yeah.
And he and Hoffman kind of talked a lot.
Charlie Wilson's War.
Around that time of Charlie Wilson's War, because they kind of knew each other's struggles, whereas other people couldn't relate to things.
Right.
And one of the comments he made was in that article was, I wish people would stop saying that an overdose of heroin killed Philip Seymour Hoffman, because it was heroin that did it.
Yeah.
It's not like if he had taken some magical amount, everything would have been okay in his life.
Right.
It wasn't the overdose, it was the fact that he was doing it at all.
Right.
And that's something I think to keep in mind about that, I'll never understand why he was doing it. Was it something personal, or did he get caught up in the Hollywood of it all?
Right. I mean, from what I've read, I mean, once it gets its hooks in you, you can't get rid of it, and it's becoming more widespread too. I mean, it's cheap, and people, it gives you like the same high as like OxyContin basically, and OxyContin is way expensive. Except the problem with OxyContin is that it's in a pill.
It's controlled amount that you take. Yeah.
So it's just it's sad. It's really sad.
It's terrible. And it not that it makes it any better or worse. That death is enough, but just to imagine that he died alone.
Yeah.
Just sitting there in his apartment.
Yeah.
It's a sad imagery for a man that was so beloved. On and off screen by so many people.
Yeah. And that'll do it for this episode. Next episode, we'll get back on track, but we wanted to do this one.
Yeah, a little more lighthearted.
Yeah, and we'll be reviewing Monuments Men and Lego Movie. And we'll see you next time.
Take care.